Morena Koto. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's Kaipara District Council meeting of the Externally Funded Projects Committee of the Council. For today's meeting, Deputy Mayor Anna Curnow is going to be providing us with our karakia. So thank you, Anna.
Kia ora. Kia hore te marano, kia whakapapapo namu te moana. He huarahi mā tātou I te rangi nei. Aroha atu, aroha mai. Tātou I a tātou katoa.
Thank you. Thank you. Kia ora. So at this point, we're calling for apologies for today's meeting, and I have an apology from Councillor David Wills at this point. And we have, at this point, no further apologies that I'm aware of.
Through the chair, Your Worship, we have a apology for lateness from Councillor Wilson-Collins.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Kia ora, Your Worship, if I can just leap in here for a second. I've just had an apology for lateness from Councillor Delavaris Woodcock as well. So just noting that.
All right, thank you. Thank you. So we have two who will be joining us later and one who won't be joining us at all, and all the other councillors are present. So thank you for that. That's clear. I would like to move those apologies be accepted, and I'm seeking a seconder for that. Thank you, Councillor Vincent. Thank you. Is there any commentary on this? No. All right, we're putting this to the vote now. All those in favour, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Confirmation of the agenda. We have an agenda which has been circulated for today's meeting, and there are no late additions to that agenda. So I would move the confirmation of the agenda, and I'm seeking a seconder for that. Councillor Curnow, thank you for seconding that. Is there any commentary regarding the agenda? No, thank you. So we're putting this to the vote now. All those in favour, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Elected members, for today's council meeting, are there any conflicts of interest regarding any of the decisions or matters before us today? No conflicts of interest, thank you. So that is item number 1.4 on today's agenda regarding conflicts of interest. That there are no conflicts today. Thank you. So we're moving on now to the section 2 of today's agenda, which is the confirmation of the minutes of the last externally funded projects committee meeting, which was on the 11th of May. Look, it's a fascinating read, actually, because people popping in and out of the meeting all over the place. So it is certainly a very, very interesting set of minutes here. And I'm seeking someone to move them as a true and accurate record, someone who was present through the entire meeting, in fact.
I'll move them.
Thank you, Councillor Wethy. Thank you. And I'm seeking a seconder for this. Councillor Curnow, thank you. So is there any commentary at this point? No commentary about those minutes, right? Okay, thank you. So we're putting these to the vote now as being a true and accurate record of what took place on the 11th of May. All those in favour, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you. So we'll move on with the mahi for today and today's agenda, which is our new pieces of work. And the first of these items is the Kaihu Valley Trail project update. And so I'm seeking someone to put the noting of this onto the table to kick off our item. Thank you. Councillor Curnow, thank you. And I'll second this. Thank you. And someone has a fold back working. Could be you, Greg.
Oh, sorry.
I'm not sure. Someone's got a microphone related issue.
Oh.
We've got an echo. That's better. Whatever's just happened. Thank you. Okay. So, so for this item, Thank you. The Kaihu Valley Trail project.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Greg.
Are you still getting the echo?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, I'm not sure what's going on with my system at all.
Please just proceed. Thanks.
Okay. Yes, take the report as read. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's just my computer's in front of things. Take a report as read. I suppose just a bit of an update just of since the report was written. We are continuing to progress reasonably well through SP4 and SP5, the sections in the lower part of the path. We are on a monthly basis getting approval from NRC to continue on with the earthworks consent. Obviously that should have finished a couple of months ago, and once we entered the winter months. But they're coming out on site, reviewing what we're doing, reviewing our practices, and just having a look at the sites and the areas there, and giving us an assessment. And we've again had approval now to carry on through to July, which is really good. Helps us then to progress and sort of get closer to those deadlines, the MB deadlines. So SP4 and SP5, now that we've got July approved, we should then be have that finished sort of mid-July into July, and then pending approval again from NRC, we'll be looking to move up to SP3. So yeah, that'll all be dependent just with NRC giving us the approval, and obviously the weather conditions with that. The intent is if we keep getting the weather conditions, we would be fairly confident we could finish SP3 or the path construction by the October deadline. Just to note, we obviously have put in the application to MB to extend those milestones within the contract, and ultimately the completion date really was sort of set two more milestones, end of December for completing the path and the bridges, and then with a further extension out to May to undertake the section on Station Road on the Kiwi Rail property corridor. Just a note on that, we have just applied and submitted our application to Kiwi Rail to formal application to construct a path in there with some detailed design drawings and stuff. So we're going through that process now to get that approval. Again, we're continuing to work with our stakeholders. I think that the team was on Tai last night, having a hui and looking at the options along that river section, and sort of some areas they're progressing reasonably well just with that consultation. Other areas I suppose are a little bit more complex. Obviously the areas further on up, I think in the dock concession areas, we're still working through that and working with dock, just obviously give as much information to help with them in that area. Obviously that's doesn't affect our timelines at the moment, obviously, because we've shifted our focus into other areas, but we will continue to see if we can get that area locked in and get a route through there somehow, working with DOC and working with the stakeholders on that. But yeah, that's pretty much the update. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. First question, Councillor Curnow.
Mr. Mayor, good morning all.
Thank you. I assume that's Councillor Victoria de Lavares Woodcock. Yes?
It is indeed. And I heard Greg's presentation, or the last part of it anyway. So I have a question, but I'll join the queue.
Okay, thank you. So Councillor de Lavares Woodcock, thank you. You'll be third in the queue. So we'll go to Councillor Curnow first, then Councillor Weddy, then yourself. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, so I just have a question around the marae and how they have we drawn a line under that consultation and said that we're just going to move into the Kiwi Rail area, or is that still open for using the public road, or have we just decided no, not to use the Kiwi Rail?
Oh, I think we've got to a point where we've sort of worked with the marae and had those discussions to see what options, and we investigated numerous options, and obviously they weren't keen on the station road at all, but the compromise and the area where in the agreement where we could get to would work with everyone was using the Kiwi Rail corridor. So I think we've accepted that from an NTN and a KDC perspective, that that's where we would like to go. We're progressing the application with Kiwi Rail, and obviously then we're having discussions with them beyond that as well, just of getting that extension for that section as well.
Okay, that's cool. And then, so just following on from that, I'm getting a bit of fallback myself now, Mayor, but I'll carry on. Given that we're working on SPE 4 and 5 and going to start on SPE 3, but the very beginning of the trail is dependent on that KiwiRail approval. How do people start the trail? Are we just not going to open until that KiwiRail part is done, assuming we can do it?
Yeah, well, that was part of the agreement that we made with Tihanga Marae, that we wouldn't use the trail until we'd sort of built that section, and that was a concession on our part, and I suppose a concession on their part because they obviously have the concerns between the Marae and the Europa, and the concession on their part was, well, the further section past the Europa, they were quite happy, you know. So it was yeah, concessions on both parts, I suppose, to try and get that. So we did agree that we wouldn't open the trail until we had that section built.
Okay, so the trail will definitely not be open until whenever that happens, given that we're not going to get is that approval in May or completion of the KiwiRail part?
That's a completion. So I'd say, yeah, with KiwiRail, I suppose it's a complex process to go through and approval, and there's numerous departments and engagement we have to do within KiwiRail, and that's where the delays are really. The construction of the path is very simple in terms of it's just a flat section in there and a scrape and bringing in metal. So the construction itself will be reasonably straightforward and simple. It's the time is getting that application in and getting approval from KiwiRail. So any gains we can get from KiwiRail and speeding that process up there, then yeah, we'll be able to bring that date forward.
Okay, and the part. So we're putting a path in beside the rail line, or actually replacing the rail line?
No, it goes beside. So there'll be a fence in between the rail line and the path.
Great. Okay, that's cool. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Weddy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Greg, in this report, you know, you focused on obviously making some progress with Tihanga Marae, and that's great that we're gradually moving forward on that. Are there any other marae or hapu that are expressing concerns or disagreements with what we're doing on the trail?
Oh, I think it's maybe, as I said before, it's a complex project, and I suppose it's maybe not even just marae, it's landowners as well that we have to negotiate, and everyone's got concerns and worries and about where the trail's going, how it may affect their property, how it may affect their marae or whatever it may be. So I think it's fair to say there's concerns from everyone, you know what I mean, but we're working through them. So the meeting we had last night with Tai Marae, they had concerns that's similar to Tihanga Marae about the location of the path originally in relation to the Marae and the Europa. So I was working with them to say, well, actually we could follow the river behind the Marae. So coming to those sort of agreements to see how that would work, and does that work for them as well. So there's those continuous negotiations until we can get that area locked in, and trying to find a path that actually works for the community that we're sort of going through in the area that we're going through in the landowners. So it's a continuous concerns raised, and us trying to work with them and address them.
So basically, you're saying, if I understand from what you've just said, there's more than just this one marae that's expressing concerns, because up until now, most of the focus has been on this one marae's concerns. And what I'm really seeking to find out is if there are others as well as landowners. And I'm just wondering, at one stage, perhaps we need to get a summary of what are all the issues from all these different parties that are in some way opposing some parts of what we're trying to do, so we get a better handle on just exactly what headwinds we've got on this to complete.
Yeah, we could certainly put a summary together. My understanding, I think, was Tihanga Marae is right on the trail, and Tai Marae is right on the trail as well. So they're the most impacted. There is some that we're still talking with and engaging with, but they're less affected of where the trail is. They're somewhat off the trail, if that makes sense. Landowners definitely, yeah, we're.
I just think it would be beneficial for this committee to have a summary of just exactly all of the all of the headwinds we've got, because otherwise each month we're going to come to the stage of saying, oh, well, the May deadline has moved out another month or another month, and we're not getting the full picture. We're getting snippets of it, which are putting pressure on the time frame. What we obviously all want to do is to see the project completed in as expedient way as possible, and we need to know the full picture about what we're actually facing, I think. So it would be helpful, I think, if you could do that.
Yep.
Next meeting.
We certainly do that.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor De La Varas Woodcock.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hi, Greg. If we turn to page 18 and the map that's called Ultimate Route, I'm interested in separable portion 1, Whatoro, to the bridge, the purple dot. And the map says on road for that portion. And my question is, why is that portion, why does it not go along the rail? That's the first part.
I think it's just it was a combination of just getting access to areas and I suppose trying to find the best possible route through. So those areas, I would have to go away to the team and specifically find that first section through there of why that hasn't been on the rail corridor. So I would have to come back to you with that.
Thank you. And this may not be a question you can answer if you're not that familiar, but I would like to know which portion and which section of the trail is what they refer to as the magic part, which I understand has the most scenic value and historic experience.
I understand that's all up at the northern sections, I suppose, and through those dock areas is where the experience, I suppose, is somewhat better. And that what those has been referred to as sort of the more magic parts of the track. So that's up in SP1 and SP2.
Okay. So what I would like to request and ask if it's possible, if at the next externally funded projects committee meeting, we can have a comparison, because I did some work yesterday and looked at the rail line on the New Zealand Railway maps, and it would be good for the committee to see the rail line itself and where the proposed route is diverging from it. And I would also ask if, in relation to Councillor Wethy's question, that where the trail is being requested by stakeholders to be divergent from the rail line, if there is explicit reasons why this is being requested by the stakeholders. So that the committee has some, so that we can have better insight, because as we're not getting the full story, and anyway, I'll not make a statement, that's a question. Can we have rail line maps to compare with the route so we can see what's going on?
Yep. Yeah, we can certainly put the a map together, and it's sort of where it deviates and where's it on in a bit more detail, and we can certainly put in the the various areas and landowners and the issues and concerns raised by them, and the reasons behind that. We can put in as much information as what we've got.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. Greg, a question from me. There are two maps here, and one of those maps is put in twice, really. Actually, well, there's three maps, because here in the report, one of them is indicated as the ultimate route, and one of them is indicated as the interim route. So what is the time horizon difference between ultimate and interim? And I'm talking here specifically regarding separable portion 4 from Mamaranui to Parore.
In
where
terms
you've
of
got kind of half of it, it looks like it's
Yeah.
done, and then the other half past kind of Maitahi and Taita is kind of in a different place.
Yeah, our intent, I suppose, going forward with the MB funding of what we've got is obviously just building up to that SP4, the purple dot there sort of thing with the bridge in that area. And obviously then going, if they did want to go forward, it would be the interim route. They'd have to go back and use the road. We want to then, I suppose, by the end of this funding, have in position approval and all landowners agreement and signed off with landowners, Marai, iwi, just about the route, and have it all signed up and sealed sort of thing. So when future funding costs come available, we are able to go into there. In terms of timing of actually constructing those tracks is going to be depending on what opportunities present themselves for funding. I know we are currently going through the process of, through the NTA, of putting the strategic business case together to seek funding for the rest of the track. So that will allow us hopefully then to get funding for the main business case and a real justification for that project, and then that would allow us to then go into the RLTP.
Okay, that's significant fallback there. Excuse me, Councillor De La Varas Woodcock, could you turn off your phone, please? Thank you. Thank you. And you have your hand raised. Councillor De La Varas Woodcock, do you have a further question?
Yes, I do. Because of what we have discussed and traversed in this part of the meeting, I was wondering, Greg, is it possible to have the ultimate route title on that map actually changed? Because I think it's peremptory to call anything an ultimate route. I acknowledge it may take time, and the important is that the route is the best possible one.
Yeah, no, we can certainly change that name, and I suppose what we were trying to do is just to be as clear and transparent as we could, sort of thing, of where we sort of working in the areas where we wanted to go and where we saw that in terms of thing. But we can certainly change the maps of the proposed sort of ultimate state or proposed map.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Elected members, are there further questions for clarification here? No further questions. Look, thank you, Greg. Thank you. Councillor Curnow.
I'll unmute. Thank you, Mayor. This is, as I've said before, the best destinations come from the most torturous journeys. So this is definitely a journey that is proving challenging, but it's good to see that where we can make progress, we are making progress. And I think it would be, for me, it would be really helpful if we can get a really clear idea of, in assuming May, what exactly is going to be open in May, so that we understand what it is we're heading towards, and just an idea of, I guess, what the funding will have delivered to us when we can eventually open something. So all credit to the team for gently persisting with this very challenging engagement process. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. A seconding statement here from me is, again, this is very key work that's going on. You'll note in the report that there was a site visit by MB, by literally the people who write the checks and have written the checks for us, and it was a very constructive day when we shared the site visit with them, and they were really enthusiastic about what they saw. They were really enthusiastic, of course, about the proximity of this area to Auckland, and they were very enthusiastic about the Kaipara Wharf network that we put together as part of Kaipara Kickstart as well, and how the notion of people arriving by sea from Auckland to Dargaville to do the Kaihu Valley Trail. They were also really mindful of the fact that it's no longer the Kaihu Valley Rail Trail, and that rail is only a part of the route. And so again, that name change, elected members, I remind you, kind of occurred for this project about a year ago. And so it's no longer just about the rail route. Part of this is along stop banks, part of it is proposed to be away from where the rail line used to be, but nevertheless in the valley where there had once been a rail line. Some of it will be on that route. So let us not get stuck on the past, but in fact to be looking very carefully into this report, where it enumerates very carefully exactly how much percentage in each portion of the route is on the rail line, how much is on stop banks, how much would be on council roads, and so on and so forth. So the important thing here is to be providing an opportunity for this trail to open and to be proceeding. And I can tell you, with the price of fuel doing what it is, there's going to be a lot of people, I suspect, wanting to use this trail to get between northern parts of the Kaihu Valley and the rest of Dargaville into the future, with petrol prices going like they are. So this modal shift is, and the opportunity here for tourism is still unparalleled across the west of Kaipara district. And I'm supporting this for the Kaihu Valley Trail here. No longer just about the rail line, but something much, much more than that. Thank you. Are there any further statements? Councillor de Lavaris Woodcock.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On Sunday, I attended the Waikaretu Marae trustee meeting, and one of the trustees talked about his experience on the Lake Dunstan cycle trail in central Otago, and talked about the magic of the experience and the huge economic benefits from so many New Zealanders getting out and having fun. And I want to talk to the benefits of this Kaihu Valley Trail, and I acknowledge the Mayor's point that it is not just about the old railway line, but that there's, you know, multiple wins here for the whole community in terms of, you know, new fences getting built and native planting screenings being planted in collaboration with the Kaipara Moana remediation program, which seeks to secure our fisheries food resource for the Kaipara. And that's such an amazing vision and such an amazing project. And this Kaihu Valley Trail links so strongly to that. And so I want to underscore the huge economic benefits for the whole community that this Kaihu Valley Trail will bring. And in a time when we've got quite a lot of social despair, and there are many youth, rangatahi, that don't see a future, and you know, are basically, we have read much about the challenges in mental health, and part of that, I think, if you're a young person and you can't see opportunities to start a small business or to learn a vocation or a skill that you can market and to earn a living and have purpose, that's what this trail is about. And I so know that it is so good that it is going to advance, and it will be supported by everybody, because there's nothing it's for the greater good. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further statements? Councillor Vincent.
I support the noting of this report.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any further statements? No further statements at this point. Thank you, Councillor Curnow. Would you like a closing statement? No, thank you. All right, so we're putting this to the vote now. The noting of this report. All those in favour, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you. Right, so we're moving on now to the Mangawhai Shared Path project update. And Councillor Wethy is moving this, and a seconder for this, Councillor Delavaris Woodcock. Thank you. And we have Greg again to report on this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, just take the report as read. I suppose just noting a few things of the timing of the report. Under the comments in the first page, we were still sort of looking at negotiations of extending the resource consent. We have had those negotiations and we didn't get approval to get an extension of that construction window through NRC and obviously then DOC. Yeah, too many concerns with, I suppose, just the birds in that area and the risk that it could potentially pose, and no one wanted to take that any sort of risk in those areas, just with the limited number of birds that are left, and they're trying to protect that as best we can. So so that being said, obviously those negotiations have happened. We are now, it's more definite now that we will be starting in January for that approval. And that works, so that will delay the project now through from January, and it'll carry on then through that period. Yeah, the only other thing I sort of noted as sort of a bit of a typo was they are coming to the committee seeking approximately an extra 400k of funding. Just to note, that wouldn't be the EFP meeting, that would be the council meeting. We'd be coming back with the as the council, obviously full council meeting has those delegations and the EFP wouldn't. So I think that report will be coming through to the council meeting and to have that discussion, that platform, rather than in this scenario here. The only other things to note, we are progressing. I think all the planting is finished now on the track. We're progressing with the connection from the art gallery down to Leisure Street with the path, and we have got the pretty much to the point of the final negotiations for the community path section, and the price is in with that, and we're just sort of negotiating and working through to bring some of those costs down, and then we'll be just seeking some approval to get that awarded to United Civil through this contract and get that moving in the next couple of weeks. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. So we'll go to Councillor Wethy for a question, then Councillor Delavaris Woodcock. Thank you. Thank
you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of questions, Greg. One, obviously there's going to be price pressure on the budget. The $400,000 you've talked about, it's a bit unclear from your report as to whether there is a potential to reduce that from 400 to 200 if North Power contributes to future-proofing their ducting work. Could you comment on that? Is the 400 before or after any contribution from North Power?
The 400 is separate from that sort of thing. So what the 400, it's more the architectural elements of it. It's the widening of the fishing platforms. It's the archways going into there. It's some of the materials we're using. So I think that's independent of North Power. So what we have been doing, I suppose, is, and exactly what you're saying, is trying to be conservative with that. I suppose it's there might be opportunities for savings going through the contract, but obviously we don't want to start cutting too much out, and we want to sort of, yeah, give ourselves the opportunity to build it and then get the savings as we go through, possibly.
So if you apply, will you know whether or not North Power is sympathetic to putting future-proofing in there before you come with any extra funding request to council?
I think Tim's working through those discussions at the moment. Hopefully we would have a bit more clarity on that, but I can't be 100% sure with the timing of that coming to next week to council.
Okay, now my other question is actually what's happening now. Anyone who's driven down through the frontage of Mangawhai Central will see that Mangawhai Central's contribution to this path, in other words, putting in the section directly in front of that development, is starting to progress right now. What I'd like confirmation of, because we've asked this before and it's been confirmed, that the specification to which the Mangawhai Central part of that path is being built to is the identical to the rest of the path. So it will be a seamless transition from the part of the path that United Civil have put in to the part that Mangawhai Central have. Can you confirm that the width of that path in front of Mangawhai Central is going to be the full width of the path as it has been leading up to the boundary of Mangawhai Central?
My understanding is that it is, but I will go away and double check that and just get 100% clarity on that. But I'm 95% sure it should be the same.
If you could do that, and if you could email committee members as soon as you've got that, because if we wait till next month, where's meeting, it could well already be put in that path, okay? Because the foundations are going in now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor De Lavaris Woodcock.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Wethy asked my question about the 400,000 shortfall of funding, so that's dealt with. But I would just like to confirm the portion 12. Is that the Tara Creek? Is that what is referred to if we look at the map? Councillor Kerno, on page 31. And the green portion and the number 12, is that what's referred to as Tara Creek?
No.
No, I think Tara Creek is up in phase 2. We've got section 7, 8 and 9 is where we're building the path and the boardwalk in phase 2. So Tara Creek is in that area. So I think parts of that area we can build in terms of that it's outside that Tara Creek or outside the area which has been designated as sort of environmentally sensitive towards the ferry turns, but there's an area then obviously that we can't go in, and that's, yeah, I think that's either just south of the bridge or just north. I can't remember which one.
Okay, so the causeway, I've always understood the causeway to be from there's different names going on. It's kind of confusing. But thank you. That's all right. I'm happy with that answer.
Thank you, Councillor Larson. Question for clarification.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just a question about that 400,000 or wherever that number happens to land when it comes to council. Do you have any indication of where you're planning on taking that money from in other budgets, or where you're anticipating it might come from, please?
I understand that 400k is subsidised 400k, so a portion of it obviously already been approved by, well, preliminarily approved by NZTA. The balance of the local share then obviously be KDC, and I understand, I think, and Sue might be able to help me here, that's coming from, was it council reserves, Sue, or is it the oh no, sorry, I'd be guessing. It's not off the top of my head, but I'd have to confirm.
Yeah, through the chair, we'd probably look at the financial reserves, because that's recreational, and specifically it does mention access to coastal areas.
Okay, thanks, Sue. And just with regard to the Mangawhai Central section, I see there's a figure increase in cost there of 185,000. Is that coming from the development agreement with Mangawhai Central, or is that over and above what they're contributing? That's on.
I would have to double.
Yeah, it's on page 2 of the.
I'd have to.
On page 2.
I'd have to double check that.
Yeah, we'll come back to you. What's happening with Mangawhai Central is they are building it for us, and we've got an agreement with them as to the amount that basically will be a credit against any cash they have to pay for development contributions in the future.
Okay, so you can just give them a greater credit if there's more cost, essentially.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, thanks very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there further questions for clarification? Councillor Kerno.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just leaping ahead a little bit and just thinking about the portion that goes from Mangawhai Central through to the village. and just wondering if we've got any kind of time frame on that.
At this stage, I suppose what we're looking at, obviously, we've got the phase 2, which is in the purple there, that we'd hope to get started in January. We're currently now obviously got that funding approval as well to design phase 3. So we're going through that process of getting it designed. I think we're just close to awarding that to a consultant to undertake that design, with the intent of starting that next year, construction-wise, but sort of looking at the timing of, it'll be late next year, so then we'll put how that fits in with summer and then the disruption we cause, and just and getting the designs finished. The lower sections obviously would be outside this LTP, and into the next LTP, I believe. So it'll be that next round of sort of funding that we'd look to.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there further questions for clarification? No further questions? All right, very simple. Thank you. I will go to Councillor Wethy for a statement. Thank you.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, this project is proceeding pretty well, and I think that everyone in Mangawhai is looking forward to getting it completed. There's no question that even the bits that are already usable are getting a lot of action as far as cyclists, pedestrians, runners, the whole lot. So it's certainly in our interest to try and complete this quickly if we can. The delay because of the blowout of the supply of the raw materials required to put the bridge in, and subsequently delaying the construction of this part 2 is unfortunate, but inevitable, unfortunately, with the reaction that DOC and the Ferry Turn Trust have to stopping virtually anything occurring during the ferry turn breeding season. However, as I understand it from separate discussions with Tim, that we would have probably had difficulty getting the appropriate materials in time to do that earlier construction of the piling work, so it's probably going to fit in quite well with the supply of materials, etc. So if we can get that done, it will mean that we'll hopefully by the end of next summer, we'll have everything completed up to the end of section 10. But that's we'll leave all the green section, which is 11, 12 and 13, the parts that Councillor Kerno mentioned, being the last remaining area to get that connection from the village through to Wood Street, basically. So there will be some real pressure from the community to try and complete that, because really we're going to have a job sort of 3/4 done. Until that's completed, that green section, people won't be able to cycle or whatever through probably one of the most dangerous parts of the track, which is from Pearson Street through to the start of Mangawhai Central. So looking forward to a confirmation that we get funding for that part 3 section, or stage 3 section, and I think that's where we'll get the biggest bouquets from the community when we do the completion of that track and open it fully. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor De La Varas Woodcock.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When I was in Mangawhai on Monday for the Mangawhai Community Park Committee meeting, I enjoyed driving along Molesworth Drive and seeing people out and about using the parts of the shared path that are already done and constructed. And in particular, I noted a father with his child riding pillion looking down from nautical heights. And it was such a great experience, because the first serving councillors will remember the journey that we've been on, starting with the Mangawhai Community Plan and the amazing collaboration and engagement that council undertook with the Mangawhai community, and that vision of slowed streets and everybody out walking, cycling, mobility scooters, mums and dads with pushchairs, that was the vision we had. That is what the community wanted, and the planting, you know, to get this feeling of a coastal village. I can see that starting to come to fruition and come to reality, and that makes me feel really proud and really happy. And thank you, Greg, for the great work that NTA has done. If you pass that on to the team and everybody, and the staff and council, and seeing this project through, and also United Civil, who have managed to obviously do the best they can with what is inevitable in disruptions for all the community getting out and about and to and fro. Well done. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Curnow, statement.
Yeah, so thank you, Mayor. I just want to and second the thanks to the team on the great work that they've done, and encourage the section on the community park to be done with great speed, because there is a big movement in the community to get involved in the planting of that area, so that we actually get plants in the ground around that shared path as soon as possible, so that they actually get a chance to establish before the dry weather comes. And just one final thing, when this is all done, when we have a shared path from Wood Street to the village, I will be on a new e-bike going from one end of Mangawhai to the other with great joy. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that moment, because I don't have the guts to do it not with a shared path. So I'm really looking forward to being able to use that shared path.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson-Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Morning, everybody. I'll keep it super brief. I had to smile when Councillor Wethy said that the Mangawhai residents are, will be so happy when this is finished. But as someone who doesn't live in Mangawhai, I can assure you that the visitors will also love it. And I've stayed there before, and it is just like Deputy Mayor Curnow. It's you feel like you're taking your life in your hands, trying to not use a vehicle to get from Mangawhai to Mangawhai Head. So yeah, just want to agree with most of what's been said, and that this is just such an awesome journey that this project has been on. I can take absolutely no credit. It was already devised when I showed up, but it has been really awesome to see it unfold in its stages. And yeah, an absolute kudos to everyone involved, and really hoping to see it, see those little patches, get fixed, get sorted out as well. It's just going to be really, really cool for such a sprawling, busy place. It'll be nice to actually have footpaths. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Larson, statement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just very briefly, this path's going to be transformational for Mangawhai, and I remember, I can't remember how long ago it was, but it's been a pretty dangerous area, quite frankly, particularly down Molesworth Drive there for a long time, and very, very unfinished from a development perspective. I remember discussing with Councillor Wethy some time ago about how we better get some of these projects landed this term, and I couldn't be any happier with how this has come together. It's almost unbelievable, the clever work that's been done behind the scenes, with some particularly good work from some elected members, and also the amazing work that staff have done negotiating this funding to land this amount of funding for such a high quality path is just quite remarkable, and it's going to have a real legacy for Mangawhai for many years to come. So really looking forward to it progressing, and as others have said as well, I mean, this project team, United Civil, putting this together, a very difficult project to have taken on, and once again, our amazing project manager Tim Manning, just seamlessly putting all this together with all the twists and turns is also pretty remarkable. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Councillor Vincent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All I would comment is that a need once satisfied is no longer a motivation for action. So just because the cycle path works out doesn't mean there won't be further. It'll be part of the world it's assumed, and we move on to the next thing. But it's fantastic how it's coming out. I see it on a weekly basis. Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. A quick statement from me. Yeah, I've ridden my e-bike with the dog in the backpack on the back of my shoulders from all the way from the Domain right through to the Wood Street shops. So as Councillor Kerno says, if you like, I kind of took life in my own hands somewhat on that section of Molesworth Drive here on sections 11, 12 and 13 near Pearson Street, the goat track, if you like, where the goat track is. Looking forward to the time when that's no longer there and is part of the shared path system. But I can tell you from me and from my dog who was in the backpack on my shoulders, it's a very smooth ride on the shared path that is there right now, and it's a great joy. So it's already as other councillors here have said, it's already providing great service to the community and will do for many, many, many years to come. And so it's great progress here. Looking forward to the next steps. Looking forward to the next steps here for this important project that's been well planned and well executed. Thank you, everyone. Further statements? We'll go back to Councillor Wethy for a closing statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, following on from Philosopher Vincent's comment, Council's projects, it's a long and winding road. These are milestones along the way, and as we tick them off, we look back and say, didn't we do a good job? But there's always a whole list of them ahead of us. So we'll just keep on working through them. Is that right, Philosopher Vincent?
If I could add, Mr. Mayor, yeah, well, I guess what I'm getting at is that there another thing will slot in behind it as a further need to be met that'll gain greater priority, and I guess rightly so. Thank you.
That's right. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, possibly, and related to Greg Monteith here and that great old Irish saying, you know, may the road rise to meet you. So, so I think we're at the end of this item for now. Thank you. So we're putting the noting of this report to the vote now. All those in favour, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Against. Carried. Thank you. Thank you. Still with Greg, moving on to the Unsealed Roading Network project update. And Councillor De Lavaris Woodcock is moving this. Thank you. And a seconder here. Councillor Wilson Collins, thank you.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, not much to report on this one. Obviously, the report is read. It's progressed really well as a project, and Bernard's managed it really well along with the contractors. You will note, obviously, we report a month in arrears with that. So I suppose the reporting you're seeing is the April figures and updates of where that sort of sits. Obviously, we're sitting now in June, so pretty much the project has come to completion, and the works have finished, I suppose, really, is the update above what's on this report. And you will see that final report coming then next month, which will be the last report you will see, just tallying up the figures and the completion of those remaining sites. Any other sites that were on the report that haven't been addressed through this just now fall into our business as usual program, and we carry on now with that just through our LTP funding, and carry on just doing the good work that the guys have done. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Councillor De Lavaris Woodcock, then Councillor Kerno. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I refer to Greg the commentary on the Page Green innovation on page 34 of this report, and I just wanted to know, I drove on Golden Stairs Road recently. It has it's noted as completed, and there were already potholes in it, and I was wondering, does that the pavement, so it's noted that it takes a while once the compaction has happened, that the pavement is solid and resistant to moisture. But while the moisture's, it can be undermined and somewhat sabotaged by rain, incessant rain. And I was wondering, do you know, could you talk to the issue of the potholes subsequent to this improvement that's happened there? And is that just part of the new wear and tear, or is that part of the challenges with the rainfall during construction of the road? Thank you.
Sorry, I think I sort of broke up during part of that question, but I think what I'm hearing is just talking to the potholes and how we manage them, and whether that's maintenance or problems during construction. I suppose with this, obviously, in this process we're going through, it's obviously there's a few things we're doing somewhat different of going through. It's making sure, one, that the shape correction of the road is there. So obviously when we go along and put in this nearly like a rehab of the structural layer and the wearing course being, I suppose, a bit more bound material to hold it together and to see it hopefully unravel less is the idea. So hopefully you'll see maybe less potholes and less corrugations. But that coupled with the shape of the road as well, I suppose a number of the roads didn't have enough metal in them to have the correct 6% crossfall on the road. So hopefully with metal roads, obviously you have a greater crossfall to keep the water off it and to run away. I suppose where we get into problems is with potholes is sometimes it's obviously we're using large quantities of material and putting that in. You may get an area that's the grading's not just a 100%, it might be 90% perfect sort of thing. So it's just it's when you're dealing with those sort of areas, and then when you get that coupled with excessive moisture in the pavement as well, and then unloading on that, it can then break up into those sort of potholes, and that they usually tend to be in those sort of low-lying areas or where water can pond. But that's what we're trying to avoid with this. So hopefully, if there is potholes, we'd look to go out and have a look at them and see why that's happened and address that.
Thank you. And will that, looking at why that's happened and addressing it, would that happen as part of the road inspection, or is this that inspection part of this PGF project?
Oh, there'll be an element of the guys going out and inspecting, and the quality control through the contracts that they're running out at the moment, and then looking through the QA process of that. But obviously then they will feed in just normally into our business as usual inspections of going through. So initially it will be just the inspections as part of the works that they've done through the various contracts, but then it will eventually just fall into business as usual. Keeping in mind, I suppose, potholes is just inevitable of where we go. They're never going to go away. It's just about trying to limit it and making sure that the ride quality is better, and the material binds together so we get less of the corrugations and less of potholes.
Understood. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Councillor Curnow, then Councillor Wilson-Collins, then Councillor Vincent. Thank you.
Sure, Mayor, thank you. Greg, I'm just interested in the thinking. I mean, it's a sort of just a reflection question. In Appendix 1, you've got the report of all the roads that have been done. And I note that some that were classed as contingency have been completed, and yet some that are classed as 1, 2, or 3 haven't been started. So I'm just wondering, what was the thinking around shuffling things from what were a maybe contingency into we'll definitely do them, and some of the things that we said we definitely do have sort of dropped away a bit. So I'm just interested in that thinking.
Yeah, every site's sort of somewhat different, and I suppose every site's got its own constraints and other things going on. And I think maybe if we use Poto Phase 2 as an example, I think initially, even before it was on the MB list or on our list and went through for approval on that, and then it was off because we were going to seal it, and then it was back on, and the timing of that, just are we going to get the funding extended, can we use part of it? So the uncertainty around that, I suppose it sort of came off from a priority to more of a we'll put it on the back burner till we see other things develop, and some of these other sites are the same sort of thing, that there may be other things going on that they want to address prior to actually going in and doing the works, and that might have been culvert work or drainage works or whatever it may have been, or some reasons that may have stopped it. But so it's having that flexibility to be able to jump from one site to another if something comes up and delays the potential of rolling that work out quickly, and getting the money spent and before the deadline. So it was having that flexibility, and there's various numerous reasons why we've jumped around.
Just to be clear, that those things that are on this list that haven't been done yet will get rolled out under business as usual.
Yeah, so this list is just our list, our prioritized list of what we would do, and obviously the PGF funding is just chopped off the first top of it, sort of thing, and then we will carry on just doing the rest on a regular basis. Of I think we get a couple of million each year to do heavy metaling on our road, so that will just continue on now and just perpetuity, I suppose.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson Collins, then Councillor Vincent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hey, Greg, I've got some real basic questions. Being the only elected member that actually lives in town, I need to go through this nice and slowly. So the page green technique that this project has used, is that now going to be what we use on all our unsealed roads?
Yeah. When we're going in and doing the heavy metaling, that's where we'll be going in and using that method. So I suppose the intent now is, historically, I suppose we've run in different metal and it's maybe been a bit cleaner. And this one, obviously, the page green's got finer, more fines in it to help lock it together. So it's nearly a combination of a bit like now. Historically, we didn't give the same care and attention maybe to unsealed roads historically in terms of we did the work, but it wasn't to maybe the same standards as say our sealed road. It got a lot more thought went into it of what we did, and I suppose historically we've just gone in, put metal in, graded it. Now it's more of the process of saying, well, actually going forward, obviously we've got the grading of the material, which we've improved on. We've got the shape, we've got the drainage renewals, we've got that all aligned. So when we go in and do nearly like treating it like a rehab, we sort out the drainage, we sort out the shape, we sort out the material going into it. So that will be the mechanisms that we do going forward. And that will be just for the heavy metal renewals. Obviously there'll be roads that we just go and patch and how that works. But when we go in to do the heavy metaling with part of that program, what I call for the rehab program, for want of a better word, it will be to that what we call the centre of excellence, sort of page green and shape correction and drainage level.
Right, and that's being rolled out for the whole NTA area?
Yeah, we are rolling that out, yeah. So we're implementing that in now, and I suppose with Bernard now moving from being the KDC maintenance manager and rolling that program out, he's now, I suppose, taken on that role of the department manager for the whole of maintenance throughout Northland. So he's now got the expertise, and he's taken that knowledge, and it's real perfect timing to be able to roll that out and implement that into the other areas. So yeah, that is the intent.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Those are all my questions.
Thank you. Councillor Vincent, question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, my question is in relation to potholes. Is the Centre of Excellence doing any work or done any work in relation to the composition of the mix that's used for filling potholes? And also, because I've seen places where the potholing seems to work, or the repairs seem to work really well, and other places where they last about 3-4 days. I just wonder how important is it, the state of this is getting down into little details, the state of the pothole, which has got water in it as opposed to being dry when it's filled.
Yeah, and that's the difficulty of it, is making sure that the moisture content is a huge part of it. The grading of what goes into that material, into that pothole again, is the grading right, and can it bind together and can it lock together and can it hold? And usually it's with those areas where the potholes formed anyway, it's usually an area that tends to maybe get more loading on it or more stress on it is where they go first, or there's more water ponding there. So we would be looking to make sure, I suppose, that what we're putting in there, that it is sufficiently good material, and that sort of grading as well to be able to bind together and lock it in more. But yeah, once a pothole forms, it's very difficult to keep filling it, because it will progressively, it'll be notoriously a weak point then, obviously, because you've just put in a small patch of material. So I think the easiest way is to rip that up and regrade it to get that real quality sort of finish. But obviously they will have to keep patching it just with that sort of material, and we would look to be putting more fines in there to help it lock together.
Okay, so my first question was, is the Centre of Excellence involved in assessing the best mix, or you think you've got the best mix at present for using title report?
Oh, I understand we'll be using that page green mix as well, sort of thing. So that's the material we'll be putting back on those roads. So once we've got that wearing course, that's the same grading material that we'll be putting back into it. So whatever's on there, we continue on with that to help bind that in and lock it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions for clarification? None. Thank you. Right. Thank you, Greg. We'll go to statements. Councillor Delavaris Woodcock. Thank you. Councillor Delavaris Woodcock. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well done with the work on this, and it's close to completion, and there's been a great discussion about all the specifics, and we've learned a lot. So thank you, Greg.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson-Collins.
Thank you. Yeah, just to reiterate that thanks. Whilst I do live in town, so gravel sealed roads for me, thank you. But I do have a friend that lives up one of the roads I think was used as a test site for the page green. So half of it's done and half of it's not. So that's always an exciting journey to have this really nice, smooth, unsealed road for part of the way, and then when you reach the part that is the old good old gravel road, the little old car shudders around quite a bit, and it's quite a different ride. So it's just phenomenal to see the difference that this page green technique makes to our unsealed roading network. And I just actually am really happy to see this project come to completion successfully, and that this technique will now be used moving forward whenever we need to do the heavy metalling on our unsealed roads. So yeah, well done. It's been a positive meeting for me so far. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there further statements? Quick statement from me. Thank you, Greg, for your report here, and I'd like to acknowledge the work of Bernard Peterson that you've also mentioned here, and his new role exporting, if you like, what we've learned here in Kaipara to all the other roads across Northland. For the roadless north, this is a significant advancement, and the Centre of Excellence that was put together inside the Northern Transportation Alliance, if you like, has allowed Kaipara District Council to get on with this work in a way that we would never have been able to do back in the old days, just as a little council independent of the NTA system. We wouldn't have been able to take that on and achieve what is being done here. I'm looking forward to season 3 in this as well. But certainly for now, the idea of Bernard taking this work for the good people of Whangarei and further north, and this page green system is really great. So well done, Kaipara Council, and good old Kaipara Kickstart. It's actually worth much more than perhaps we'd given it credit for when we started on this part of the journey. So here's to our unsealed roading network all being better. And I can tell you from a bike rider on the roads, including Paparoa Station Road, which was one of the early roads that was done, they're absolutely wonderful to ride a bike on, as well as the cars, Councillor Wilson-Collins, as you talked about the smooth journey you've had. Like I say, these roads are quite transformational, actually. So here's to the great success, and congratulations again to Bernard for his opportunity that's ahead for him, taking these great learnings forward to everyone else. Thank you. Are there further statements? We'll go back to Councillor Delavaris Woodcock for a closing statement if you wish.
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor. All
right, thank you. We're putting this to the vote now. The noting of this report. All those in favour, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Against?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you. Thank you. Right, at this point, we've been going for 1 hour and 10 minutes. Whānau, would you like to break now, or would you like to do the Waipo River Road and then break? Which?
Keep going with Waipo River?
we'll do that, and then we'll break after that. Okay, thank you. So Greg, you're in luck. So that will be the natural break for the roading section of this agenda for today. So regarding Waipo River Road, I'm happy to move the noting of this item, and I'm seeking a seconder for this. Councillor De La Varas Woodcock, thank you. Greg, kia ora.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, obviously we take the report as read. The project's completed at this point. I suppose the only thing to note that has been sort of an ongoing thing is the ongoing maintenance of the road and who's taken that over. We did have a catch up with Doc regarding that and putting that forward and sort of making KDC's stance very clear on that, I suppose, of that we're not interested in investing the road at this point or contributing towards ongoing maintenance. It was left with Doc then to Sue Reid Thomas was going to put together a working group, which I've agreed to help be a part of if I can provide any inputs or any insights into where that could go with their ongoing maintenance with Taroa and Doc. But at this point, I suppose it's been made very clear. I've emailed Taroa GM Snow just to make that very clear as well, so we're clear and transparent that obviously we're in the maintenance defects period, and obviously during that period we will address, well, the NTA will address any quality defect issues through that and manage the lights and different things through that period. But over the next, well, till May next year, we will be bundling up the as-builds and bundling up the maintenance manuals in preparation to hand that back to them. So just that, yeah, that everyone's aware, I suppose that's the route we're going down of handing that road back over at this point. What that comes out, I'm not sure, but we've made our intentions very clear, so we're on our cards on the table. I did get a question just before the meeting just regarding the road and the liability, about who owns the road and the liability. I think the question was, sorry for the late notice, if Waipo Road is not a road, then what are the traffic regulations that may apply to it, if any, e.g. what are the consequences of running a red light? I suppose the reality is it's a private road, and with that, so it's not vested and it's not public. So the implications of running a red light is more for the landowner to manage that as well. And obviously, how it works on a public road is the legislation around lights is all set there, and the structure for that, and the enforcement with the police, NZ Police is there as well to do that. Obviously that doesn't exist in the private road world. It's more of a courtesy thing that they will have the lights working there, and then obviously having people driving with them. Any liability and consequences then is obviously between the parties that have a crash or anything in there, and insurance companies. It won't involve obviously Kuiper District Council. We've done our part and we'll hand that over, but we do note obviously the road has been built to public road standards, sealed standards, and obviously with the traffic signals has been designed to the traffic control devices. So it's all set up as what we built a normal road to. We've done safety audits on that road and gone through the NZTA sort of safety process and addressed all the issues that were raised. So from our perspective, we've done the work as if it was a public road, but it is a private road, and we hand it back, and that it all sits now with the landowner.
Clear,
I hope
thank
that
you.
maybe answered the question.
Thank you. Thanks, Greg. That's clear. We'll go to Councillor Weddy for a question, then Councillor De La Varas Woodcock. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. I think you've made it clear that you've made, on this vesting and maintenance issue, which we've been very focused on over the last 6 months. You've obviously sent to Rorowa in writing the council's position. Have you also sent in writing to Doc as well?
No, that was to Taroa. I have caught up with Sue at the meeting and done it verbally. I can certainly do that in writing as well. So there is a record of it, but it was just at a meeting I had with Doc, with Sue Reid Thomas.
I think in writing is always good. We've got to have a full, something to go back to. Now, the second thing is, and this is, I guess, probably an extension of what Councillor Vincent was querying, for road users who turn off council roads and go down Waipua Road now that it's sealed, is there clear signage to say that they are now entering a private road that is not council maintained?
I generally don't know if there is signage there. I don't think we put any signage up for that. I know at the end of most Kuiper roads, where the road ends and it carries on usually it's a paper road, we would have signs that council maintenance ends at this point. We don't have that in this situation, I suppose, because it's coming off a highway onto a private road. But I don't think we have put any signs up there, and I suppose it could be then more of a question that we could put to NZTA as well. Do they want to have that distinction between the highway and the public road, and then to the private road? But we could certainly raise that as an issue, and if they wanted to do that, they could.
I just think that, you know, following on from Councillor Vincent's comments, that in fact, if you don't, would it not be fair to say that road users will assume that they're just carrying on the normal council maintained roading network? So, you know, I think that's an issue that you should possibly have a look at and decide what is the best course to protect council for any potential liability in the event that people do have or come to any misfortune on that road.
Yep, we can certainly raise that with Turo as well and see if there's an opportunity to put a sign up or something to say private road.
Thank you, Councillor De Lavaris Woodcock, then Councillor Vincent, then Councillor Curnow. Thank you. Thank you,
Mr. Mayor. So I have a series of questions which may as well just ask one by one. Is it correct, or in this inflationary environment, that it's $600,000 plus GST for 1 kilometre of sealed road? Is that the going figure still?
Yeah, yes, it's more up into there, and I suppose it varies of where you are and transport and getting materials there. So there's a lot of different elements into it, and I suppose obviously cartage is a big part of it. So obviously if you're further away from the point of supply of materials and bitumen, that cartage then does add up. So, but yeah, that's a figure we're sort of using now as a rule of thumb. We used to use closer to the 500, but now we're sort of saying, well, closer to the 600.
Okay, thank you. And this 1.8 million, does that include the cost of the second seal?
Sorry, you broke up just the last bit, sir.
Does that include the cost of the second seal? Is that all totally bundled up into this package?
I'm sorry, it keeps breaking up. I can hear, but no, there is obviously there's elements of the pavement construction in there with the cost of the traffic signals are in there as well. There's a design that's in there. There's the MSQA. There's the cultural monitoring in there and reports we've done. So this is the total project cost in there. It's not just for the sealing.
Okay. Does it include the second seal?
No.
Okay. So who's going to pay for the second seal?
Again, I suppose it was never in the original budget or program to do that work. And obviously that road, once it's handed back, then it'll be the responsibility of the owner of that road, which will be Taroa at that point. We did put an application in for transferring funds from POTO Phase 2, the unspent funds from POTO Phase 2 to see if that could be used to do the second coat seal, but it's looking, what we've got left in POTO Phase 2 probably isn't going to be sufficient, so we're looking at pulling that application, that request out, so it's, yeah.
Okay, and my final question is, when I drove the road, I noticed that the embankment, or the bank on the land side, not the river side, that there was virtually no drain or dip or drainage for debris and soil and clay and I just thought, gosh, this is going to need ongoing maintenance and in order to ensure that that's cleared and the road surface doesn't get compromised. And I was wondering if NTA could instruct Te Roroa, or show them how to keep the road good. I mean, pass on your knowledge rather than just sort of passing the road ownership and maintenance obligation onto them without any guidance about how to do a good job of looking after that investment.
Yeah, we're certainly, as I said, I'm happy and I've offered for the NTA to sit on the working group that Sue's putting together, to be able to assist or support in any which way we can. Obviously, when we hand the road over, we will have those discussions around that. I am aware that Taroa does have their own, I think, roading crew, and I think we utilise some of them for doing works on the actual road, and Fulton's subcontracted them to use for part of the traffic management and maybe some of the labouring. So those sort of simple tasks where they're just going along and picking things up off the road if there is a bit of a slip, they'd be well positioned to do that. It might be a bit more different in terms of, again, on some of the more complex items of potholing or resealing, but again, that would have to be with a specialised contractor that they would have to engage, who could, again, provide advice, but we can certainly assist in that and going forward. Yep.
It's great to hear. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Vincent, then Councillor Curnow. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess my motivation behind my questions I've posed last thing yesterday was concern about liability coming back on council. So I must apologise. I actually didn't get all of your explanation, Greg, regarding the question of the application of traffic regulations to that private road. Would you mind just covering that off again for me, please?
Yeah. And I might have to do a bit more follow-up with the LGA if you do want more detail. But my understanding it is a private road, and I suppose within that then the legislation that we sort of use around public roads in terms of enforcement and traffic control devices doesn't really apply to there. Because it's obviously we've got legislation around traffic signals and when you can go through and when you can't, and the enforcement and the legislation that sits behind that enforcement and a delegated authority for the police to enforce that. That wouldn't apply obviously to this road because it is private. So again, it's more of a courtesy thing. So if someone did go through it, it's more on them, and I don't think there would be an enforcement thing, and I don't think Taroa would be able to enforce that because then it's a delegated powers. Could they do that under any acts? I don't believe so. So it'd be more certainly of a courtesy thing that people would have to stop, and if there was any incidents, then it would be for the individuals to sort out, and insurance companies to sort out.
So okay, thank you. So do you think it might just send a bit of a message to the other parties involved, like Te Roro and DOC, if we do stick a sign up at the beginning of the road, as Councillor Worthy has suggested, to indicate that we are not responsible for this, and in effect they are. I mean, if the traffic regulations don't apply, then there's no even any agreement on which side of the road you should travel on, is there?
No, and I suppose it's very much just like your private driveway. Sort of thing coming into there, it's private property that you're going in, and it's an access way. So with that, so it's
if it's a private road, the public does have the right of access. Like I'm coming back again to this issue of potential liability coming back on council because we have enabled public access to this bit of roadway, and there's issues of potential risk, which well, may or may not be sheeted back to council, could be sheeted back to DOC perhaps, or to Te Roro. So I think, yeah, it might be a very faint risk, but I just was wanting to flag that with you.
Yeah, we can certainly look into it in a bit more depth, but certainly I suppose it's the access pre council's involvement in actually building the road, and noting that our involvement was just to construct the road and pass that back over. The access was the same pre and post, so that, you know what I mean, so there's still gates there available for Taroa to close off their access if they choose to, like any other sort of access way. But we could certainly see if we can do a bit more delving into that and have a conversation with Snow and just about that crossover and making aware of liability and seeing if there's options for posts and what that would actually mean, putting signposts up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Curnow. Question.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm also going to delve into the liability question, just around whether there's any residual liability on council for, I'm going to think of two examples. One would be if there was an accident where an investigation was to identify the road design as a contributing factor, or whether, if there's a major slip either within or without the warranty period where some kind of part of the design of the road was considered to be a factor. What I'm thinking about is that could we end up in a legal problem with the owner of the road? So where does our liability lie?
Yeah, it's a very good question. It's I suppose the liability is the same as any other private access, isn't it? We've gone through and designed and built a road and done safety audits to a level that would be a public road level on a private access way. So from our perspective, we believe, and we can stand there hand on heart and say, hence why we put in the traffic signals. If it had been a private person or a private person going in to do that, which the road was before, it wasn't wide enough for two cars, and that's how it was. So it was 3 meters, blind corners. We've gone in and we've improved that situation in terms of done safety audits and come back with a design then with traffic lights to alleviate those risks and manage those risks. So I think from our perspective, we've certainly gone in, followed a process which we can demonstrate, and it's the same process that we use for any other road we'd be building, with design audits, post-construction safety audits, and following that NZTA process. So I think from a liability perspective, we're very clear of that. We can demonstrate the process we've followed through and the steps that we have taken to make that road safe. With that, and I suppose possibly extra cost as well, because I don't think initially it had sort of traffic signals in there. So it's hence obviously having to get more money coming into this project to make it work, and then stopping to do that and seek greater funding for a better outcome. In terms of slips, again, that's, it's somewhat act of God sort of thing we've gone through. We've just built a pavement. We haven't built any retaining walls or structures that could be deemed to fail, and if we had to, we'd have had to build them to a code and a standard as well, but we haven't done any earthworks on the banks or moved them, so anything that did slip would just be a natural occurrence that we couldn't be held liable for. The same way on an existing road, councils sort of can't be held liable for something happening. It's more just how we respond to that as well. So if we do see slips, or if we do have knowledge of it, how have we responded to that?
Okay, so there's to your mind, there's no risk really of any sort of future liability coming back on council.
I don't believe so. No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there further questions for clarification? No further questions. Thank you. Right, so we'll move into statements. So the opening statement here is from me. It's great to be at the end of this project. It was the very first of the Kaipara District PGF projects that was announced. And when it was announced, it was news to the council because it was nothing to do with us. And so council has done a great job in actually doing the work here to get through the NTA, the road built for Tororo for the Rakarangatira project, which is also coming up with DOC, to the Waipo Forest Visitor Centre there, the headquarters there. So I'm very pleased that we're at the end of this project. I'm noting very much the commentary and the questions about risk and liability for the council going forward. I just quite simply see council as the contractor who built the road, and that it is a private road, and that it's from here on it's up to the other parties who are involved in that road about how the next steps, whether that's a second seal coat and or the safety rules are applied there. With the rest of the rules and laws, because all the parties have had the opportunity to vest this road with the council and chose not to do so as well. So, and we all chose that would not be the path here. So, so the important thing is that for this project, we've ended up with the very first set of official traffic lights in Kaipara District. in the middle of the Waipo forest, the most unlikely place. And as I've said before, if one of those poles were to fall into the Waipo River, it would be claimed by Far North District Council probably as theirs, because we are absolutely on the border with Far North District Council right there. So it's a really important symbol here of what we have, and the growth and development and encouragement by this council of economic development and safety and prosperity for everyone all across the district. So well done, team, for getting to the end of this. Thanks again to the team from NTA for helping lead all of this. So thank you. That's a statement from me. Thank you. Councillor De Lavaris Woodcock is the seconder here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I would like to tautoko the Mayor's commentary. I attended the blessing with the Kaitiaki Kaitiaki at Waipo River Road, and we got there fiendishly early, and it was freezing cold, and it was so exciting when the Mayor and Thomas, the chair of Te Rorua, opened the gates and we all drove through in convoy through the only set of traffic lights that Kaikoura district has. And then afterwards, when we were at the trust headquarters, and there's a lovely picnic area and lawn, and speeches were made, the archaeologist pointed out that there were some finds in the work that progressed during the project. One of them was a penny, and Te Rorua said that it can't have been owned by locals because they didn't have much money. But the other two things that were found were two marbles, and the archaeologist asked everybody assembled, I wonder if anyone has lost them. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll go to Councillor Joyce Paki for a statement, and then Councillor Vincent. Thank you.
Morena, I just want to celebrate this because I think it's transformational, and as a high user of that road for a number of years, I think the risk is so minimal compared to what it was prior to that new road. I got to drive it on the weekend. It was epic. It was an epic moment to be driving in there on a road of that state into Waipo, and the lights, yeah. Really interesting place to have lights, but they work, and I think we have to give credit to Te Rorua because they will be the highest users of that road, and I believe they understand the risk that is associated with it because they've been driving it for generations. So yeah, I'm not sure that putting up signs to state the obvious is a good thing, because we're all adults and they will work it out. That's what they've done for generations and they'll continue to. But I'm pretty risk averse around it. It's in a far better state than it was prior to. So congratulations to the team. It looks phenomenal. There's no potholes. It's frankly, I think it's awesome and a job well done and worth celebrating. Kia ora.
Kia ora, thank you. And Councillor Vincent, statement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will revert to my theme of concern about liability. It may be that Section 315 of the Local Government Act 1974 has been repealed. I'm not sure, but that does distinguish between a private way and a private road. The difference being essentially that a private road is intended for use by the public. Now, to me, this issue is the fact that the council was the project manager in effect for getting the road upgraded is incidental to this potential issue of liability. And I just wanted to flag that. And I do think there are some maybe rather subtle, should I even say nuanced, legal issues here, which could be attached that hadn't occurred to me before now and may not have occurred to others. And if the trouble with common sense is it's not that common. And so I just want to flag my concern about potential liability coming back on the council for the fact that within its district we have this private road. And if I could distinguish for you the difference between what a private way is, that's as a right of way or a jointly owned access lot where the owners have a say in who uses it or not. With a private road, it is intended for use as the public, so the council is a party to it by that. And so that's just what I was wanting to draw attention to, and if there could be some follow-up on that, I would much appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there further statements? No further statements. Thank you. At this point, I'm going to bring the item forward for a vote at this point on the noting of the Waipo River Road report and to conclude this item. So thank you. We're putting this to the vote now. All those in favour, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. So there is your Waipo River Road project completed. Thank you, everyone. At that point, Greg, thank you for your attendance today, and we will adjourn the meeting at this point and we will resume at 11:15, please. 11:15 a.m. Where we'll pick up with the Kai Water irrigation project update. So we'll see you all again at 11:15. Ka kite anō. Hiya, Lou. Hiya, Lou-dee-doo. Lou-dee-doo. Well, we're at 11:15 now, and of course today and last night was the winter solstice, the longest night of the year. And today across Kaipara, I can't even see a cloud. It's very, very clear and cold. It's what you call a bluebird day in other parts of the world where they have bluebirds, but of course not here. But our winter solstice, everyone has all sorts of interesting traditions with winter solstice. And right now, part of our tradition, I'm waiting for there to be a quorum so we can recommence the meeting. But we, of course, have Matariki, of course, on Friday of this week, 2 days from now. So we're all awaiting the arrival of the new stars to start the new Māori New Year. So we have a quorum now, so we're picking up our agenda again. Thank you, with the Kai Water irrigation project update. And so I'm seeking one of the elected members to move the noting of this item. Thank you. And that's Councillor Curnow. Thank you. And a seconder for this. Councillor Wilson-Collins. Thank you. Thank you. And I'm going to say the person leading this project for reporting is Eros, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Eros. Buongiorno. So over to you. Thank you to lead this project. Thank you.
Kia ora, everyone. Can you hear me? Just first. Okay. So Kai Water. So on site, what has been done has been the field been covered with the crop, with the winter crop, so and sprayed, so to pass the winter season. As asked last time, I have attached to the report, to the status report, the final season report from Northern Inc. with all the lesson learned and what has been happening for the last season. So we are on holding pattern at the moment. So the new proposed planting plan will be issued to this committee in August. So until August, we'll be pretty much holding everything on site. So this is kind of general status.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Question, Councillor Wethy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, look, I guess, Eros, you know, we've experienced this journey in the first season for this project, and I think we would all agree that there's been a few successes, but there's been a lot of, if you like, issues that have cropped up that have compromised the result that we'd hoped to achieve. So the first season is very much a learning curve. Now, we're talking about the second season, but I'm looking at the budget here. We had a budget overall initially of a 740,000. We've used just on 550. So we've got about $190,000 left of the initial 740, which of course is quite a relatively small percentage. And when you present this in August about the forward plan for the next season, are you going to be able to achieve what you want with only $190,000 remaining in the budget?
Yeah, good question, Peter. So what I will do is, so my understanding is the major component of the work are installing the system, the irrigation system, and set up the site. So that will be the biggest component in terms of cost. So what I will do, I will go back to the team, and for the next meeting, so the July one, so in advance of the August, is maybe just confirming what can be done or what this budget will allow. So I've been told by the team that we have no budget issue. So I'm assuming that, as I said before, the biggest cost was the installation of the irrigation system at the beginning of season one. But I will bring this back to this committee in July.
Thank
for
you.
the report.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Curnow.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, Eros, I just wondered, in the report there was some comments on the irrigation system on site one not having been a great success and actually ending up being quite an expensive way of doing this. But the report doesn't necessarily sort of specify what's going to be done instead, or are we just going to have another crack at that same system and try and make it work better this year? So I'm just wondering where we are with that.
So what I think the first system is the most labor intensive, right? And the other one is kind of the high pivot. So there's not much involvement from the labor perspective. So I will check. I think that is depending also on the crop and the type of crop that you're installing together with the system. So it's that combination.
Which leads me to my second question. Are there any thoughts on the second season crops?
Yes, yes.
We're just going down to one on each side. Yeah.
So we're already bouncing ideas and We're already working on the plan as we speak. So we're not going to wait the end of August. But so there is a balance between what is agreed with MB in terms of what type of crop. So it's kind of, I'm not an agricultural person, so I can't elaborate more on this. But so what I will do, as I said, I will take probably, so I can respond to your answer in terms of yes, if what planned. So we're working on that right now. So I will provide maybe more information on the July meeting. So we'll still give us the time to reassess on time for August. So we're not getting to August with all these questions. So
I think that that would be good if we get that clarified as soon as possible, because if we're going to shift to a different type of irrigation on site one, then one of the problems we had in season one was the irrigation systems not being ready in time to actually have the effect that we were hoping they would have. So if we leave the crop decision too late, then we may be too late to get the right kind of irrigation system onto that site. So
as I say, I don't think going back to Peter, probably it's looking at the budget. I don't think there will be any major change in the system irrigation. Otherwise, this will blow up the budget, especially looking at this is the most expensive one. So the site one is the more expensive one. So I'm assuming at the moment, I will confirm next month that the system will be left in place and will work around the crops rather than just the system itself.
Okay.
But we'll confirm next time.
All right, that'd be good. Thank you.
So, Eros, as the winter is the time of the year when you do the planning for the following growing season, so that's all exactly right. My question is there provision being made in the planning that you're making for the crops for next year for there to be we'll call it a second harvest or a second crop that is being grown under irrigation? So rather than everything being planted in the spring and harvested in the autumn, that there are crops that are planted, if you like, out of season on the calendar, which is something no one's ever been able to do here, so that we can prove and test the benefits of irrigation, which is again something no one's ever had here before. So the idea being that you have from an October planting to a June harvest, two completely different crops on the same piece of soil. Is that thinking going into the development of what you're doing right now?
Yes, that has been discussed internally. I guess it's not totally my forte, but so there is a lot of in terms of also what has been in the scope with MB and what is the definition of type of crop. So we'll bring again to into the management to the proposed plan. So we'll take this on board and we'll bring back to the project team. But these have been discussed internally already. We haven't come to a solution yet, but we need to get the plan sorted.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Are there further questions for clarification? No further questions. Thank you, Eros. Thank you. Thank you. So, Councillor Curnow, statements.
Yeah, I think that there was definitely some learnings in year one. There was not a huge amount of success in there. So we have learned a lot, but I think the most important thing that we've learned from year one is what we don't want to do in year two. So it's good to sort of to see some references to that understanding of doing one crop with and without water to show that demonstration. And I'm hoping that we will have a better result this year, but I'm really keen to hear the planning for season 2, because I'm just wary that a lot of the problems with season 1 seems to have been around everything happening too late. And so I'm really keen that we don't end up in that same position, even if we're only doing one crop, because the idea is to demonstrate the benefits of irrigation as opposed to necessarily the problems of irrigation. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Vincent. Oh, sorry, Councillor Wilson Collins as the seconder, sorry. And then Councillor Vincent, whose hand is up, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just want to concur with what Deputy Mayor Curnow has said. This project has kind of been riddled with issues and learnings and challenges and things. So yeah, the point is that we actually learn from them and we don't repeat those mistakes again. So, and I'm sure the staff are keen for that as well. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the second round goes and what the results of those can be. So yeah, thanks Eros for your report. It's difficult coming in sort of after the work's been done, I guess, and having to bring us the details. But yeah, good luck for the next season. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vincent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I'm disappointed with the whole project, actually. That seems that some of the learnings had already been learnt by previous generations, such as the importance of having a stale seedbed before you start, and to have to go through this and have, in so many ways that they have learned about things that I think the knowledge was out there already. So that's meant that there's been limited value in what's been achieved to date. So I hope for better things ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there further statements? Quick statement from me. I'd like to acknowledge the work of Northland Inc. here regarding the Kai Water demonstration site report, which is attached to this agenda item. Their end of season project report is substantial and has great detail in it. It makes a tale of very, very, very sorry reading. Indeed, for the results that came from the cropping here, which signals, of course, some wider issues across the economy of Kaipara District regarding many people who were involved in cropping in this part of the country last year as well. But certainly it's a very clear report and very, very detailed. I'm looking forward to seeing next year's report when the results will be better and brighter, and the understanding is that were taken from what's already come to pass will be then embedded in the system. So it's certainly very interesting times for Kaipara's first irrigator. Yeah. So congratulations to Northland Inc. And Greg Hall here for a very clear report. Thank you. Are there further statements? No further statements. Thank you. We'll go back to Councillor Curnow.
Nothing to add, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So we're putting this to the vote now about noting the Kai Water Project Update Report and noting the Kaipara Water Demonstration Sites End of Season Project Report. We're putting this all to the vote now. All those in favour, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Very good. So we're moving on now to the Kaipara Wharves project. And so I'm seeking someone to move this report, please, the noting of this report. I will do so. Councillor Curnow seconding that. Thank you. Eros.
Okay.
Kia ora.
Kia ora. So Potu Wharf. So from when the status report has been written, I can confirm that we have received the resource consent. So that is now with us. As written in the report, last time we discussed this, we had the risk of the hardwood timber, so that delivery of the material. So this means risk has been now mitigated or says avoided. So we have secured the timber that's now floating to New Zealand, and will come to New Zealand and will be treated in New Zealand soon. We are working on with the contractor around the construction methodology and the contract details, so we can start construction begin end of August as per program. We're trying to fast track this, but we are in program, so no issue there. And we have done an informative session last Sunday at the Marae that has been all positive. So we are on track, we are on program, and the budget is it's all good news at the moment. We don't foresee any major risks for now. So yeah, so that is kind of
Thank you.
where we're at.
Thank you. That's clear. Councillor Wethy with a question. Thank you. Then Councillor Curnow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Eros, just in your report, you state that MB have agreed to a variation of the funding agreement which extends the construction completion date to January of 2023.
Yes.
Then you go on to say that the program anticipated to be completed in October with a wharf opening blessing in November 23. Well, there's a long gap between January and November. I'm just wondering how this fits in with MB's, the later, much later completion date. Fits in with the funding agreement extension only to January 23.
So what's happened at the last round of discussion with MB, we were not sure about the hardwood timber, so they were flagging of this timber be late on 3 to 6 months due to international issue. So with MB we were discussing of what is the contingency that essentially we're gonna put in there. So we agreed to go to January, mindful that we might finish before. So we were all happy on kind of that time frame. So if we can deliver before, and we're actually on track to deliver in October, we don't have we spend the money before time, and we all agree with MB about that. So this is the discrepancy. We put a lot of contingency into the program, agree with MB due to this international outside of our control material supply that now we are managing and is appearing to be all good. So we've been
So you're suggesting that in terms of the production costs and the material costs, the MB contribution towards this project will have been spent within the time frame they've granted us, and the costs of the work beyond January 23 will be from the other funding sources like the council contribution, etc., etc. Is that right?
Can you wait a second? Just double check. So the completion is supposed to be in October. So what you see at the program, I'm looking at the other program. So the opening event, all the things been supposed to be in October, November, as per the program, 2022. So at that point,
you're saying November 23 in your report.
So we say, oh no, wait a second, where are we at? This second.
Sorry,
No, so there must be.
Sorry, Eros, Councillor Wethy. So where do you see that? Sorry, where?
This is on page 2 of the report under the section that says comment on Potu Wharf, and it's got MB have agreed to a variation through to January 23, and then talking about the wharf opening and blessing in November 23.
No, so apologies, there might be a mistake. So in the overall program,
yes.
in October 2022,
yeah, that's a typo.
It's a typo.
So that's a typo. And sorry, and the report doesn't have pages. So on page 99 of the overall agenda for the meeting is the only number I can give you here, rather than a report page. So that is a typo, and Councillor Weathy, because if you go further down into the project plan on page 102, where you get the coloured tables, yeah, you can see very clearly the Poto Wharf elements there. Have the opening event, which is shifted from June 22 to November 22. And you've got the construction period and so on. So it's quite simply, I'd say, as a typo back in that top part of the report.
All I can say to staff is that when you're doing things which are very sensitive, and particularly on a sensitive project like this, the timeframes and the budget and any potential cost overrun, double check the figures before the report gets issued. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Curnow. Question for clarification.
Yeah, I'm just sort of also in the comments section. I'm on page 98 of the report, and there's a talk, the report starts to talk about widening the entrance to address safety concerns. And can you just expand a little bit on that? Because this is, I guess, new, although in the last meeting we did talk about sort of what would effectively be a widening. So yeah, I'm just sort of interested in sort of where this idea has come from, and how extensive is the design going to be around there in terms of any environmental risks by doing that widening, environmental and sort of risks to the community, the cliffs, those sorts of things around widening. Yeah.
Okay, so part of the project that has been we are underway with the contractor does not include this widening. It's just the pontoon. Okay, so this is an outside. So we're talking with NTA if to include this in the contract or not. But at the moment, this sits outside. So it's the last agreement we had on site. So the bank over there, I don't know if you've been on site, is quite steep and sandy, and it's not just a simple job, so there need to be some thought put in that. So we are talking with NTA about the budget and who's going to design that, how we're going to do that. So this will most likely be a separate project, so not part of this contract. So we're going to deliver the pontoon, and this is what we are talking. We got the resource consent for. The cut of the bank still need to be designed and need to be look in detail. And as I said, most likely will follow another path because it's not in the MBA agreement.
No, and it's yeah, and it's something that to my mind would require quite a lot of engineering investigation to make sure there weren't unforeseen consequences to any widening. Okay, thank you. That gives me a degree of comfort that it sits outside what we're doing here. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there further questions for clarification? No further questions. Thank you. Thank you. So statements here. I'm pleased that this is progressing. I'm pleased to know that the special hardwood beams are floating their way across the Pacific Ocean towards us to be able to enable the construction of the wharf during the spring period, winter spring period here. I'm delighted to know that this has resource consent, and that is a significant milestone. So I'd like to acknowledge the participation of the Environs group of Te Uriaho and their engagement here, as well as the local kaitiaki for their engagement as well in supporting the project here to date. So looking forward to construction at full speed, and for there to be this new economic driver and safety facility for the Poto community, which, as I've said before, is the nearest community in all of Northland to the Auckland Sky Tower, but actually right now the farthest away and one of the most remote. So So we're changing that, and I'm looking forward very much to seeing construction commencing in the winter spring period when these hardwood beams arrive. Can't wait to see that. So well done, everybody here. Thank you. I'm also looking forward to, on the 3rd of July, Saturday the 3rd of July, the community information event at the Poto Marine Hall. So there will be information there for the community, and I'll be there to hear and to talk about this as well. So there's a quick little advert for an upcoming event to the community who are watching this glorious externally funded projects meeting today. So Saturday the 3rd, or Sunday the 3rd of July, in Poto is the place to be. So thank you. Councillor Curnow, statement.
Not much to add, just a real congratulations to the team to getting that resource consent in place and finding materials that are not months and months away, but can be achieved fairly soon. And so we can get this project sort of underway and built, because it's been a long conversation to get to this point. Not just the last couple of years, but decades worth of conversation to get to this point. So really looking forward to seeing piles going in the ground and boardwalks being built, and and being able to see boats docking at it. That's exciting.
Thank you. Councillor De La Varas Woodcock.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to make my statement focus on the wider economic benefits that the wharf will bring, because it's going to allow for the pickup and drop off of cycle tourists. So it's going to be part of the adventure ecotourism experience that visitors can enjoy when they come to Kaipara. And that was picked up on at the Waikaretu Marae on Sunday in their meeting, as the community discusses how they can avail themselves of the opportunity that the wharf presents. So yes, it's great to hear about the Green Heart timber coming from South America. And as Councillor Curnow has said, there has been some glitches in this project, but it is to all intents and purposes moving well along. So that is great. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there further questions? Statements, sorry. No further statements. Thank you. So we'll move this to the vote now. So all those in favour, please raise your hand and say aye. Against?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Eros. So we move on now to our next item, which is the Dargaville to Te Koporu Stop Bank project update.
Mr. Mayor, I can move that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. There was a sound break up there. Thank you, Councillor De La Varas Woodcock, moving this, and I'm seeking a seconder here. Councillor Wilson Collins, thank you. Putting that onto the table. Eros.
Okay, kia ora. Again, okay, Te Koporu. So we have the image, so you can see the report. So there is the image where this the extent of the works, about 10 kilometers. So we got two streams of work at the moment running in parallel. One is the detailed design, so the detail of all the section floodgates and all the stop banks in its entirety. And also we got the resource consent working on the same line. We have engaged with the just recent news as today we're engaged with the landowners. So I would say 95% of the landowner, they express approval to the project. We are working with the 5% that got concern. So we're going to engage in detail with that. So that will lead the resource consent process and will dictate the time frame. So yes, as we will expect that. So as there is budget in the program to deal with that. And in terms of what else? So in terms of detailed design, I just confirmed that that we're working on that. We are also talking with local contractors to identify potential way of construction and utilize existing locals if it's possible. This is a big job, so we're working on, and this will clarify in terms of construction what can or can be done. So we need to frame the budget, so the construction methodology and how we propose the work around the budget. So that's what we're doing. It's all work in progress. As I said, the risk at the moment we need to deal with few landowners that are concerned about the project, and this at the moment is kind of the critical path. All the design and the rest is underway as per program.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there questions for clarification? Councillor Curnow and Councillor De Lavaris Woodcock. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Kia ora eris. We've got, I'm just looking at this in terms of, as we move into the future, obviously we've got 95% in favour of this. Do we have any kind of, I know these stock banks are on private land, but is there any kind of service commitment or level of service commitment that landowners have to adhere to when they have these assets on their property? Because obviously there's a risk to the wider community if parts of the stock bank are not up to scratch.
Yeah, that is what at the moment is being working out through also the resource consent, because obviously we can't have 50, 60 resource consent for each property. So it will be one resource consent in name of Kaipa. So we need to work on the condition of the consent in terms of maintenance and all these things. So this at the moment is being worked out. And that will be also confirmed by the detailed design. So the detailed design will tell us what will be the suitable material to, so obviously we can't, because we don't have the budget to complete the work for the 10 kilometers. And so what will probably be is more like a preliminary work to start with, so widening up the bank. So we're looking at the moment for widening up the bank and create a good platform that will allow future growth of the stock banks. So the detailed design will also tell us what type of material can be used, how will be used, what type of compaction, so what are the requirements for this material. When we've confirmed that, we'll need to work out in the resource consent how this will work. So we're trying to go away to, you got some slump essentially on site you can dump on top of the stock banks, because this may not work in the long run once we want to get the full height. So this is being worked out as we speak.
Okay, it's good to hear that that's being thought of, because I think it's long been an issue with our stock bank network is how do we ensure that the whole network is up to scratch, because if part of it isn't, then all of it has a weakness. Yeah, thank you.
It's called the Titanic theory, but in reverse, Councillor Curnow, isn't it? Yeah. The Councillor De Lavaris Woodcock. Question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question, Eros, I have heard, is it correct, and the Mayor might know this, but that there used to be a road running along the river between Te Kōpuru and Dargaville, and that's where the stop bank now runs. Is that true? Does that mean that the stop bank actually resides on legal road, or is it actually on private title?
So I haven't been made aware of any road going on the stop bank. So I need to confirm back, so I can come back to you next month on this. So at the moment, no one raised this issue or concern. So I will confirm internally this.
And also for efficiency, whilst the landowners are being consulted about the project and its benefits and their approval, Councillor Curnow pointed to the discussion last time of the challenges involved in getting the Waipo walking cycleway and sort of navigating the public interest, private responsibility and business as usual program. So I was just wondering, is it possible to get the staff to traverse the discussion about future use of the stop bank for accessway for
yeah, so as discussed
Green
last
TK.
time, at the moment we're looking at the stop bank will require maintenance in the long run and top up. So we'll need to have some heavy vehicle run on top of these stop banks. So I'm not sure what this, we haven't seen the detailed design, will be the final width, but definitely that will need to be mowable, need to be accessible. So the decision of utilize this space for pedestrian or for walkways will be something that we'll need to probably deal in the future, because the width will be there. It's just how this is going through private land, because if probably the stop bank will still retain, I don't know what will be the deal in the end, who's owning it. So if this will be private land and people can just go around. So this is outside kind of the scope. So we can ensure that the width is 3 meter or 2 meter width. Just we'll need to get the truck anyway on top of that. So if we can get the truck, we'll probably get bicycle. But it's not kind of at the moment in the scope. So
Yes.
and also we need to be mindful of the budget that is very limited. So we're trying to maximize the defense of the land. There's another consideration. So we need to prioritize that. If we can get as a benefit, we'll do that. We'll look at that. But the primary scope is to defend the land.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there further questions for clarification? No further questions. Thank you. Thank you, Eros. So Councillor De La Varas Woodcock, as the mover here, the opening statement's yours. Kia ora.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Eros. I hear your absolute clear point that this is about protection of vulnerable land to sea level rise and to inundation, and absolutely. I am drawing attention to the thinker Edward de Bono, who encouraged people to use lateral thinking and to consider all factors. And so knowing that the staff have to interact with all the landowners about this project, it was raised and got support around the table about this being sort of a win for land protection from flooding, but also something that secures transportation possibilities in this very unpredictable world that we live in. And so I just, I'm proud that we've sowed the seed of the idea, and I look forward to further reports back on this project, which is a very important one for our district. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson-Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, thanks, Eros, for the report. This is a critical project, and hopefully one that won't get stalled too much with the complications going on with COVID and supplies, etc., etc. So yeah, just wishing you the best of luck with that. Yeah, it's a complicated beast that we try to run here at council to do projects for the community and consulting with the community as well. So I just wanted to commend the staff that this isn't the only externally funded project where there's a lot of work being done in the community to move those projects forward, and that's a lot of work, and I know it's not an easy job. So I just want to thank the people that are involved on those front lines, and that you're appreciated. So thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there further statements here? A quick statement from me is I'm very supportive of this work proceeding, and I'm happy to see the stage that it's at right now, and very keen for it to be proceeding at full speed. There are many aspects of this yet ahead, and I think the idea of a cycleway on top of the stop bank, as is the case in Ruawai, parts of the Ruawai stop bank system, would be an added benefit to a significant infrastructure project here. And so good luck to the project team with pursuing this at full speed. Thank you. But also certainly aware that the longer term costs of developing this may continue to be large. Thank you. Thank you. Are there further statements? No further statements. Thank you, Councillor De La Varas Woodcock, for a closing statement, if you would.
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So we're putting this to the vote now. The noting of this report. All those in favour, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Against?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you. Thank you. Moving on to the last of our substantive projects for discussion today, the Raupo upgrade project update. There's a lot of ups in all of that, considering it's a bit of a down project, really. The seeking a mover for this item. Councillor Curnow, thank you. And a seconder here. Councillor Vincent, thank you. Thank you. Eros. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Okay, so in the status report, so we've completed some preliminary geotechnical investigation on site, and we identified that there are some, let's say, potential issue regarding the foundation. So we found that the location has got 5 meters of mud underneath. So we are working on at the moment with the consultant to identify what this means in terms of construction, in terms of especially the foundation, or what the load can be taken by the soil, essentially. So we're working on option as we speak, and tomorrow we have a meeting with the consultant. So they are elaborating the report and the costing. So I will be able to give you more detail around this news. And this is throwing a little bit of a span. The program at the moment is still underway, but we need to, as I said, identify if there is an implication in terms of cost, budget, or anything in terms of rethinking of the structure that was supposed to be a concrete structure. So we're working on toward an option. At the moment, I'm signaling in the report that there might be some budget issue if we're going ahead with the concrete structure as it was at the beginning, as was stipulated in the contract with MB. So that is why you see the red mark on the project. So yeah, we're pretty much on an holding point at the moment on this project.
All right, thank you. Councillor Curnow, question, then Councillor Wethy.
Kia ora, thank you, Mayor. I think my question might be more for Sue. If there was a cost overrun on this, given that the drainage network is funded by a targeted rate, would additional costs fall on those targeted ratepayers as opposed to coming out of the general fund? I'm not sure if Sue's here.
Yes, I am here. Sorry, I'm just trying to get my camera on. Look, I think that would be a council decision at the time, and I'd bring it to you with the options that you had, because council can determine how it's paid from what pot, and we'd look at the options at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wethy, question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, Eros, look, reading what you've written in the report and reading between the lines, which is not in the report, I would say that this has a very likelihood of being a substantial overrun on what was originally budgeted. And obviously, after the meeting you have in the next day or so, you'll be in a better position to quantify that. And I'm just wondering what your view is once you have a bit more substantive information. Are you intending to go back to MB? Because it does concern me, any suggestion that a shortfall of a significant budget overrun would be expected to come out of council funding, general fund. And if it didn't come out of that and was a targeted rate, I guess we'd have to do quite a lot of consultation to make sure that was acceptable to those who were going to have that targeted rate levied on them. So what do you think there is an option that MB would rise to the to cover some of this, if not all of the overrun, in view of the fact that it is based on, if you like, shortcomings in the geotech type information you're now receiving from your consultants?
Yeah. So the aim of this meeting tomorrow is to go through all the option potential. So in terms of the likelihood of MB giving us the money is probably a discussion we need to have with them. At the moment, we haven't raised anything because we still need to know what is the exact amount we are asking for. We also need to look at if there is another option in terms of light structure, for example. Lighter structure, just a big concrete, or a smaller structure is another thing. Can we do a smaller gate? So we're looking on all these options and quantify the cost. So if there is no option that are within the budget that we have, we need to bring pretty much to this committee on what we want to pursue. There might be also the look of other, maybe the gate on other location as well. So we are opening up all the options. So we are trying to, I would say, we're looking at the moment at spending as little as possible in terms of consultant investigation or anything else, just to define what is the future of this project. And we'll be talking with the consultant tomorrow. So essentially, going back to you, Peter, we're looking at all the options, costing all of those, so we can have a better picture of what can be done. Because the main issue for this project is that the budget that was requested at the beginning has changed significantly. So now we're looking at the scope, and we're not embarking in a project, and this is what we're trying to do. We're not embarking on a project that we know from the start will be an overrun, or if we're embarking in this project, we need to know what will be this overrun and how it will be dealt with.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Curnow again.
Yes, sorry, there was another question that I forgot to ask. And I was just wondering, is when you're talking about the options, is the option of doing the other canal rather than this one, is that an option, or is that just not, it just doesn't have the priority?
This is one of the options we're looking at. Okay. Is also reutilize the same money for the other canal that is smaller, but again, we need to do some research around that. But this one also one of the options considered.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there further questions for clarification? Okay, so I have a quick question, Eros. So at I'll say the July Externally Funded Projects Committee meeting, you will be reporting on the outcomes from your meeting that's taking place tomorrow. So you will have shifted the story further away from where it is right now.
Yeah, exactly. So we will have a discussion, and we have a report from the consultant plan for tomorrow as we speak. There might be some, if in case of delay, worst case scenario is the next week, but I mean, I haven't heard from the consultant yet, so hopefully tomorrow is going good. And at the next meeting, we will report with all the options. So we'll do all the analysis this month, and we'll come back to you next month on this.
Okay, that's clear. Thank you. Thank you for making that clear. Very good. Are there further questions for clarification? None. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Eros. Thank you. So Councillor Curnow is the mover here. Kia ora.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an unfortunate position to find ourselves in with this, but not necessarily unexpected when you're dealing with things under the ground. And there's, it is really, really important to get this right, as anyone who's ever built anything on those flats know that what happens under the ground moves a lot. And if you're putting very big, heavy concrete floodgates on the ground, you're likely to get movement, particularly if we've got 5 meters of mud underneath it. So it is unfortunate, but it is appropriate that we pause, take breath, and look at all the options here. So I do commend the staff for doing exactly that. And rather than just either soldiering on or throwing hands up in despair on this. There are many, many, many ways to solve each and every problem, and I'm encouraged by staff's willingness to look at all of those options. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Further statements? Councillor Vincent is the seconder.
Yeah, since I seconded the motion, Mr. Mayor, here, I guess it shouldn't really come as any surprise that if you're trying to build on an alluvial floodplain, that there would be structural strength issues with the ground. I'm aware that, like, when they built the beef plant in Dargaville, the piles went down 30 metres to find solid ground. So if you can find solid ground after 5 metres, that would be a positive. So yeah, I guess we're on going down a familiar path of starting out with great intentions and then reality bites. And I guess we've just been bitten. I appreciate the efforts that our staff and consultants have put in up till now, and hopefully they employ some of Mr. De Bono's lateral thinking ideas. Thank you, Councillor Delavaris Woodcock, to come up with some creative solutions that maybe weren't immediately apparent. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there further statements? No further statements. Thank you. Back to you, Councillor Curnow. Closing statement, if you wish. No.
Nothing to add.
No. Right. Thank you. So we're putting this to the vote now. All those in favour, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. That report is noted. Thank you. Thank you, Eros. So we're moving on to the externally funded projects financial overview report here. And seeking a mover for this.
I'll move it.
Councillor Wethy and Councillor Wilson Collins seconding this. Thank you. Okay, Sue, are you speaking to this? Thank you.
Oh, hi. Yeah, I just came on because I just wanted to make sure that you saw the note I put about Poto Road, and I've got Greg here who can give further explanation on that, because I'm aware that the council did approve an increase to that project, and then subsequent to the report we put to council, there has been there has been a further increase due to cost escalations, and so I felt you might want some more explanation about that.
Okay, thank you. So this is in the bottom of the table report on page 126 of the agenda.
That's correct.
Yes.
The rest I think is all self-explanatory.
Thank you. Greg, sorry, we have a problem with your microphone.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, and there's a lot of background noise too.
Oh, apologies for that. I will show what it's doing. I will try and talk, and hopefully you can hear me okay. I've turned my camera off to see if that helps. I'm not quite sure what's going on with the connection. Yeah, this is just really to note, obviously we came back earlier this year, I think it was February, end of February, with an increase request for additional funding for Poto for a number of reasons with that. Those were forecasted costs that we'd put in there, and I suppose they'd sort of been pushed forward from when the paper was written at the start of the year, end of the previous year. And in that, I suppose we'd made some forecasting in that, and obviously part of that was escalation with that. So the reality of the contract that we supposed to put out was a measure and value contract, and I suppose what we build and what we do out there is then we pay for. And obviously in the last little while, obviously the escalation has been a lot higher than what we had anticipated going forward. So we've done some additional work, obviously, that we had to do that wasn't scheduled quite correct in the contracts, which is there's sealing of driveways and working a bit around there, which is part of the cost. And then part of the cost is the underestimate of what our escalation would be going into there. And that sort of goes back for the last couple of quarters, last 2 quarters, I think it is, that we had in there. So yeah, so how it works is, I suppose we get to a point and in time, look at that. We wait for then the escalation figures to come out from the construction industry, and we use them, but they usually come out about a month after the fact, a month and a half after the fact. So we're always somewhat delayed in that. So it's a bit of a guess game going and to estimate what that escalation would be. And obviously at this point we've sort of underestimated that substantially, and resulted in additional costs coming in there. And I suppose just to maybe highlight, I suppose, how we hope to manage this going forward. Now we have been obviously rounding up all the projects, and we've sort of noticed then that we do have costs that we can apply to Photo Phase 2 from Photo Phase 1. We had costs that we had in Photo 2 initially there that got journaled back, which we need to journal back, which will help with this. We've got costs, legitimate costs then, I suppose, of around the Green Hill Quarry and the consenting around that, and some of the coordination management that we can put over to 2 as well, legitimate, and utilise the underspent funds in Photo 2 to help lessen our overspend on 1. Well, not lessen, but it's legitimate costs that should have been in there in the first place, sort of thing. So we've just gone through with a fine tune, just come and just make sure we've got everything going in there. Yeah, so that will help, and then any balance of that, then obviously we will have to then sort of look at the unsubbed roading budget to pick up the shortfall.
All right,
happy to take any questions.
We'll go to Councillor Curnow, Councillor Weddy, Councillor De Lavaris Woodcock. Thank you.
Kia ora, Mayor. Thank you, Greg. Yeah, just some questions about our contracts. Obviously, you say the contracts have an allowance for cost escalation. Is there any limit on that, or do we just basically have a contract that says here's the price, but it can go as high as you like?
It's a balance of, usually with contracts that we put out and within a 12-month period, we tend not to bother with escalation. In the current market, that's being reviewed by obviously a lot of organisations to say, is that appropriate? What the balance is, I suppose, is when you put a contract out and you ask for a fixed price, you're passing that risk on to the contractor to price up and give you will get a fixed price, but he will then look at and add a substantial margin of safety for himself, sort of thing, so he's not cut short. I suppose by when you contracts that go over that 12-month period, we do tend to put escalation in, so we own the risk a bit more. So what that means is that the contractor isn't pricing in that risk, so we get a true and fair representation of what the cost is. We're not paying more, we're actually paying what the market value is. That's it. That if we were to put that contract out, well, POCHO as a fixed cost, then we would certainly be putting that risk back onto the contractor, and could potentially be paying more.
So obviously that sort of cost escalation allowance is a little bit situational dependent. So obviously if we'd known a couple of years ago about where we were going to be now in terms of the global market pressures and all of that, we might have been better to go for a fixed cost back then. So is there any process that goes on within offices around really trying to assess the validity of the different types of contract at the different times?
We do go through that process and looking at our procurement plans, and I suppose it's standard practice. Like usually anything over 12 months is standard escalation would be in there, and that's supposed to standard sort of 3910 clauses that and contract forms that we use. But we are definitely as an NTA even looking at now shorter term contracts and say, well, actually anything under 12 months, should we be looking at escalation in there as well to manage the risk around what that could be? Part of that is, I suppose, is by that risk and trying to make sure that it's fair around the cost of that, and we're clear and transparent of what those costs are. And a lot of the contractors are tagging the contracts now to say, well, actually, this is what I've allowed, even if we don't put escalation in, they're putting clauses in to say, I've allowed this much of a margin, a couple of percent, 5% or whatever it may be, goes above that, that's your risk, and we'll be seeking claims with that. And I suppose they put those tags in, and and then we have to accept them before we award the contracts. And obviously, if we don't accept them, then they don't bid for the work. And that's across the board that a lot of contractors, well, most of them are actually putting that in, just because of the volatility of where we're at.
Okay. All right. And more specifically on this one, the 100, I think you mentioned 188,000 or thereabouts. As
Sorry,
being
that should be 138. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Right. No,
Sorry.
Yeah, good. It wasn't my eyesight then. Okay, so 138. Is that before or after the proposed reallocation into POTO 2 of some part of it?
That's the increase of what we put into the contract. I suppose so. That's additional what we spent on the contract with the escalation and the bits around the driveways and things like that. That hasn't been apportioned out to anywhere yet. So I think that's just what we're saying. Our overspend is of what we had talked about previously, which is, I suppose, yeah, I wouldn't call it overspend, but it is then obviously the cost of doing the work. What we have to do now is go through and then see, not for that work, but of the work that we have done previously in terms of the Greenhill Quarry, the coordination management and different things, and some costs we actually thought had gone to POTO 2 seem to have been journaled out of the POTO 1 for some reason, so that's go back. And then there's other costs that we believe that are fair and reasonable to go to POTO 1, so we can utilize that underspend. So what we have to do is then go through everything, tally that all up, come up with that number, move that across, and then obviously let MB know we've done that, and we will do that in the final report that we put through to them for the contract agreement, and set out the financials of that, but also then cancel the request for that money to be moved from POTO 2 to Waipo River Road. And we sort of hinted and gave MB a bit of a heads up at the last meeting that we were sort of looking at this area, so I expect something coming.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Weddy, then Councillor De La Varis Woodcock. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Greg, now I haven't gone back into my council meeting minutes, but when we approved the extra funding for POTO Road Stage 1, there was a fair chunk of that was contingency allowance, wasn't it?
I have to go back. I don't know. I know there was big junctions for earthworks and additional earthworks and additional items of actual construction. I don't know what the figure was, sorry, off the top of my head, for contingency.
Because I do remember, I think it was that one that had a big chunk of contingency, which I would have thought would have been enough to cover what you're talking about now. So the other thing is, you in the earlier agenda item on Waipua Road, Forest Road, you indicated you're talking about the possibility of some unspent money on POTO Stage 2 being allocated towards the reseal. Well, I think, would you be considering rewording your comments to the committee on that? Because it seems to me that there are more pressing issues that we need to address here rather than
I think
subsidizing a private road.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry. What I was saying was with the Waipo River Road was that with regarding the seal code, I said we had an application in, and we're certainly looking at reviewing that application and withdrawing that application pending moving costs from 1 to POTO 2. So this is the process we're going to be going through and the team's doing that at the moment, going through and checking all the costs that have come in for POTO 1, and once we know that and then what goes across, then we'll be in a confident position to be able to say, well, actually, what's left, what's remaining. But we've sort of given the heads up to MB that we don't believe there will be much remaining in that. We think we will utilise it all for POTO.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor De La Varis Woodcock.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, Greg, my question, you mentioned this being a measure and value contract system. When you tender a contract for, say, construction of a house, and the contractor, the costs escalate, there's cost overruns, and I understood, in the normal, there's some noise in the background. Why is it that the contractor in this case cannot wear the shortfall between what council agreed for this project to completion and what keeps coming back for us to meet from ratepayer dollars?
So yeah, I sort of did cut out there a wee bit, but the crux of it is, I suppose, it is a measure and value contract, and with that we go through and do the design with our consultants of that and do all the quantities and the designs of that, and then come up with the estimates for the contractor to price with that. So they're pricing on that, and that's what we pay them for. So if they did less in those quantities, we would pay them less. If they do more in that area, we pay them more. So if we get those quantities incorrect, or if we've missed something out, then that's with us. To pay for that, obviously. So we're just paying them for what they actually do, and I suppose it's a fair and reasonable thing to do. The work they do, we pay them for. If they do less, we pay less. If they do more than what was in the actual schedule, then we pay them.
When you NTA has overseen these this considerable 10 kilometres of seal, does it ever get mooted around the NTA financing table about councils themselves becoming works departments rather than being so vulnerable to the market forces that keep resulting in ratepayer dollars having to be spent?
No, it's and I suppose in the construction industry, we tend to go in circles of we don't reinvent the wheel. So it's done that before, and the model changed because there was reasons and concerns around those models and the costs with those models. So then we went to obviously the private sector model and putting out and closing all down the works departments. Yeah, each one has its pros and cons. Obviously, if you have the works departments, then you've certainly got the costs and the risks of all those things and owning all that machinery and making sure that it's productive all the time. Whereas the private sector certainly can go off and seek additional work elsewhere rather than just within council. So it's not something we look at. We've got the models we've got at the moment, and that's the area we're in, and I suppose that's just what we do until someone, I suppose, higher than my pay grade sort of makes those decisions of changing that system.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there further questions for clarification here? No further questions. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Greg, and thank you, Sue, for pointing us in the direction of the additional information here. So we're going now to Councillor Wethy for the opening statement. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Listen, I think I take from your comments on this item, Greg, that you're flagging to the committee that there is some issues to be resolved here, but you've also outlined to us a number of pathways relating to where this extra cost could be allocated or in terms of diminished in terms of any extra claim on council's funding. And I can say I have great confidence that by the time we meet next month, you'll be able to report successfully that you've been able to reallocate this money and there'll be no extra cost to council. So thank you for your report.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Wilson-Collins.
Nothing to add, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further statements here regarding the financial overview report here? A quick statement from me. I'm noting as we get towards, we'll call it the June 30, this is the, if you like, the May report, but in fact, the April report spend to date, we will be more than 2/3 spent the money on all of these projects for our externally funded projects by the 30th of June. So we are making really great progress here as a small council, and I'd like to congratulate all the team for the work that's going on here regarding the reporting here, which is substantial. So thank you. Thank you. Are there any further statements? Back to Councillor Wethy for a statement.
No, nothing further. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. Putting the noting of this report to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, team. So moving on to our final item here for today is the program overview, the externally funded projects program overview. Seeking a mover for this item, please. Councillor Wilson-Collins, thank you. And a seconder here. Councillor Joyce Pucky, thank you. So I would assume, I'm not sure who's leading this item. Could be Eros, I'm not sure. Well,
Yeah, I can lead this.
thank you.
Brief. So I would say the only real change from last time was the agreement with MB regarding the Tekopuro and the Raupo project that have been slightly moved. So the overall finish or completion date has not changed, but we have done some rearrangement of the internal program, and it's been formalized. So, and construction of have been changed from the previous report. Yeah, the construction completion for PO 2. But overall, this thing is, again, this has been discussed in detail on each project.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Are there questions for clarification here? This is very much a summary overview, but Councillor Wilson-Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hey, Eros. I just, there's no actions under the Kai Water column, row.
No, you're right. You're right. So the Kai Water. So there's we're going to submit the August plan. So we're probably missing the milestone to submit the planting plan. So when that is approved, we're gonna change. We're gonna finalize this. But until the plan is not approved, we can't really put a date at the end of the day. So this, I guess, this was been removed. And also, so I'm just reading. I got some insight. Give me a second reading. These are the contractual milestone with MB. So this is what have been agreed. So if in terms of Kai Water, we have no date for. So we haven't agreed anything pretty much with MB on this. So as why it's not there.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Are there further questions for clarification? No further questions. Thank you. Thank you, Eros. Va bene. Going to Councillor Wilson-Collins for a statement here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a great report. It's a great tool. It's a great snapshot. What I noticed this month is that there's less and less on there. So that's really just a testament to the projects that have reached conclusion during the time of this committee, which is really great to see. And yeah, and it's just kind of interesting to see everything sort of get completed and disappear. That doesn't mean that it's no less important, or the projects that are left are no less important, but it's just been fascinating to see that journey right in front of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Joyce Pucky.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Wethy.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I noticed with the delays that have been put into the Mangawhai Shared past stage 2, that the construction doesn't now commence until January next year and opening not until July. My plea is that to whoever is still working for council or representing the communities on council may actually think of adding those of us who are no longer involved with council to the opening visitors list, because I think this is going to be a very, very big occasion for Mangawhai, and I'd certainly like to be involved. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there further statements? No further statements. Councillor Wilson-Collins, do you want a closing statement? No, thank you. All right, so we're putting this item to the vote now, the noting of the program update. So all those in favour, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. So, whānau, that brings us to the end of today's externally funded projects committee meeting. And so thank you everyone for your attendance and for the very good work that's going on here. And in really challenging times, while inflation is running rampant and while supply chains are disrupted and project management is a rare commodity inside project teams for councils. So I'd just like to congratulate, in summary, all of the team, the project management team in our project management office, our PMO inside Kaipara District Council, for the overall management of the suite of projects that we've been covering in today's meeting. Certainly in my engagement with mayors all around the country, this particular area regarding project management of large construction and physical projects is extremely challenging for councils everywhere right now. And I think our council is tackling this period and these extraordinary transformational projects really courageously and doing a great job with this. So so thanks to everyone in our project management office, our PMO inside Kaipara District Council. I'm now going to hand to Councillor Curnow for our closing karakia to bring us home. Kia ora, Councillor Curnow.
Kia ora, Mary. Kia tau na manaakitanga a te mea ngaro, ki runga ki tēnā o tātou. Kia mahia te hua ma kihikihi, kia toi te kupu, toi te aroha, toi te reo Māori, tihei Māori ora.
Kia ora.